What is up, everybody? It is that time. Yes, the year 2022 is coming to a conclusion, and it's time for all the anime of the year to go head to head to find out who is the best, the top 10 anime that aired in the year. As per usual, I want to emphasize the fact that this is not me saying that my anime is better than your anime and that any anime that's in this list is better than what you enjoyed. Everybody has their own loves, so I'd love for you guys to go down in the comments down below and let me know what your top 10 anime of the year is. One of the better things about these top 10 lists is for everybody to come together and realize if there's any shows they may have missed they may want to check out. I also want to emphasize my usual rules that I place upon my lists. Any show that's still running on into the winter 2023 anime season will not be included. Also, any shows that are above 50 episodes will not be included as well. So things like Bleach, Overlord, those types of shows. We also have a new rule that will be going into effect, which is based off of the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, which means that the only eligible shows is from fall 2021 to summer of 2022. So thus, Mushoku Tensei Java's Reincarnation wins everything. I'm just joking. I want to emphasize that this year, more than any other year, has been very difficult for me. I have spent over a week daily, hours and upon hours shifting my list around. It is a very difficult year for me to decide what is in that top 10, which does mean that yes, I have a crap ton of honorable mentions, but I've come to a conclusion. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. After shifting things around over and over again, I've finally decided on my top 10. So let's jump into my top 10 anime of the year 2022. Kicking things off, I have my number 10, which is, yes, indeed, my number 1 of the fall 2022 anime season, which is Do It Yourself. Do It Yourself is one of those very special shows that does slice of life perfectly. It has characters, it has motivations, it has character moments, and character writing that honestly really did surprise me. The concept of the show itself is people coming together for a do-it-yourself club. But the broader concept here is people coming together in a world where do-it-yourself concept is kind of the old. Everything now is done by 3D printing or just ordering on their services. The idea of even making something yourself seems foolish. But yet a group of people that all have different backgrounds come together for the same goal. And it's how they bring each of these characters into the fold that I thought was very masterclass writing, giving each and every one of these characters their moment to shine, and each having their own personalities to add to the fold. You watch Setofuu and her very creative nature that's always in the clouds. Takumi, who's more of the heart of the group. She, the goofy, energetic girl that gives muscle to whatever work they're doing. Rei, the club leader, who's more of the glue that brings everybody together and kind of guides people. And yes, Jobko, the best character of the show that absolutely blew me away with her writing. What's so great about the series is that it's a slice of life series that doesn't rely on the cute girls doing cute things factor in order to sell it. It's the writing. It doesn't rely on melodrama. It just has character moments. And I loved every single episode of it, and the ending was absolutely fantastic. Moving on to my number 9, I have Call of the Night. I absolutely loved this series. The thing that really makes this series so fantastic is just, it's a complete package. It's got style, it's got music, it's got visuals, it's got backdrops, it's got character designs, it's got character moments. Everything just makes it into one complete package that I just loved every single episode of. I felt immersed. I felt a relatability to the main character. You have this main character who's a shut-in who finds freedom in going out at night. When nobody's out, the streets are clear, and eventually he comes across Nazuna, who's a vampire. And very quickly he decides, you know what, look, I enjoy the nightlife. Why not become a vampire? But it's a little bit difficult because in this world, for a person to be bitten by a vampire and turn to a vampire, they have to love the vampire. So it kind of turns this whole thing where he's constantly trying to find out what love is because he doesn't understand it. And over time, he's running into other vampires. He's running into other people that are kind of escaping at the night. And each one of these stories kind of turns into one of those aspects where it's a simple concept, but it's important to the person themselves. One of my favorite moments was this office worker who felt like she was stuck in her job. She was afraid of her boss calling her and asking her to come back in. She's overworked and she's full of anxiety. And you have this little moment where Ko, the main character, almost gives her a simple answer to her issue, showing her that even though she's an adult, she can still enjoy things. And again, it's very simple, but it's an impactful moment to the character themselves. And I thought everything was so perfectly portrayed, and I just absolutely love Nazuna. And again, the soundtrack, gosh, the soundtrack, the visuals, the style, it just oozes. Moving on to my number 8, I have Made in Abyss second season. My gosh, Made in Abyss keeps hitting. Every single time I watch the series, it's a mixture of unsettling, but yet intriguing and just masterful world building. This writer, although I think they're sick in the head, is insanely creative. Every single shot of this series is an art piece. taking something that is so foreign and realizing it, making a breathing world is absolutely incredible. Even though, yes, every single arc I'm just gut punched because of how unsettling the situation is. The characters are put through some incredibly terrible stuff, but it always has an explanation. It always has a realization to it. It always has impact. It all kind of centers around this thing called the Abyss, which is this gigantic hole that goes down into the ground. And the further you go down into it, the more danger it gets. And yes, there's a sickness about it where if you go too far down, you can't return. And this element added in with everything else and the ideas behind certain characters and their desire to get away from their previous life was definitely hit in the second season. The characters are fantastic. The writing's fantastic. The creativity, the artwork, everything just oozes. I can't get enough of it, which makes me sad this is pretty much caught up with the manga because it's going to be quite a while before we get anything else. For my number 7, I have The Case Study of Vanitas Part 2. I cannot get enough of this series, and it's another one that's sad because I think it's pretty much caught up with the manga. The Case Study of Vanitas is a very rare case of just vampires and setting and style done right. It's kind of interesting because when I watched Part 1, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters, and I love the build-up towards the later part, but it had a very anticlimactic ending. Part 2 made me realize why, because the moment that Part 2 starts up, it takes off, and it does not let go. Every single one of these episodes just kept building up and building up tension and building up the characters and building up this moment, this climactic moment that absolutely blew me away. It's rare when I have a series where every single character I'm intrigued by, and I want more of them. Even characters like Roland, who's a part of the church, I thought was going to be a throwaway character, but in the end, gosh darn, I want more of this character. But at its core, Jean and Chloe shined in this season. An absolutely fantastic villain character, and an absolutely broken and very conflicted Jean. The Case Study of Vanitas, yes, sells me on characters, character moments, but at the same time sells me on the world itself and the mechanics within the world itself. It's a vampire story, essentially, and each one of these vampires almost has a unique thing about them. You have some vampires that are able to read into people's memories just by biting them. You have others that can manipulate people. And seeing how each one of these kind of mechanics and rules plays out a story is really intriguing. I desperately cannot wait for more of this series, and I highly suggest it. Moving on to my number 6, I have Shadow House second season. My gosh, I cannot get enough of Shadow House, specifically the Shadow House house itself. This is one of those rare series where the environment is a character itself. Yes, I love all the characters within this world. Kate, Emilico, Barbie, Barbara, Ricky, Sean, John, Patrick, every single one of them are fantastic characters. But at its core is this other character. Again, like I said, the house, the rules within it, and how it functions. It's truly shocking to me that every time I watch this series, even from season 1 all the way into season 2, I kept thinking, okay, they've revealed their cards. Okay, this writer has revealed everything they're going to reveal about this whole thing. And then they reveal something else that shocks me. They give me something else, and I go, damn it, I want more. Gosh, there's this thing too. How is this thing so complicated? How is this world so intriguing? I eat it up, and I cannot wait for more. For those who don't know, it's essentially about this house that has these children in it that have been assigned living dolls. Because the people of this house, the family members, are all basically silhouettes. You can't see their face or anything. So they need a living doll to always be at their side that serves as their face. And as it goes along, you learn about the living dolls, you learn about the house itself, and yes, the progress from going from being a child to being an adult in this house. And it's truly fascinating, and I cannot wait for more of it. Moving on to my number 5, I have Summertime Render. Yes, this series was absolutely phenomenal. Now, I will say it's down in the 5 area because the ending, the last 2 episodes, was a little bit of a downer. But I will say, that's to say that 23 episodes of this series was non-stop amazing. It's essentially about this guy that returns home for a funeral, but he quickly finds out that this funeral for this person that he knew, Ushio, during her autopsy, they end up finding something that creates a little bit of a question mark around her death. And slowly over time, he learns about this sort of mysterious curse about the island itself, where when somebody will see their doppelganger and then they'll be killed by the doppelganger. And yes, there's sort of a little gimmick here in the idea that, spoilers for the first episode, Shinpei, the main character, dies, and he immediately resets to coming to the island again. So this whole thing about him trying to figure out how to avoid death and at the same time discover the mysteries behind the death of his friend. It's one of those series that I love so much because it's a mystery supernatural series that really pulls off the mystery. Every single episode, I was noticing clues, noticing things that were pointed out, and I took note of them. But what makes Summertime Rendering better than most other shows is that eventually it shows you and rewards you for taking note of things. And I think that's one of the better ways of doing mystery. And my gosh, some of these episodes were absolutely breathtaking. The scene at the school in the gymnasium was absolutely phenomenal. The animation, the action scene itself, the voice acting, the cast they had for the series was just, I couldn't get enough of it. I highly suggest Summertime Rendering. For my number 4, I have Akabe's Sailor Uniform. My gosh, I absolutely love this series so much. It's essentially about this girl that grows up in the sticks. So she doesn't have any friends. Like the school that she went to, she didn't have anybody her age. But finally, she gets to go to the school that her mother went to. And she's so excited because she's always seen this picture of her mother where she wore this sailor uniform. And so her mother handcrafts her a sailor uniform. But when she arrives there, she realizes, oh, by the way, some time has passed and their uniform has changed. But they still allow her to wear it. And this kind of makes her stand out, which is great for her because she just desires to meet as many friends as possible. And again, it makes her stand out. But what makes this show so special is it's basically having this girl who just cannot help herself but greet and meet and make friends with anybody. They make some kind of joke later on when introducing her saying, oh, she's the girl that if you see her and your eyes meet, she's gonna run over and say hi to you. Komichi is so special. She's a special type of person, and I loved kind of rooting her on and having her meet people and the encounters that she has. And what kind of made it more special was that it felt so natural. It felt so pure in how these characters interact. And it always felt like it was not afraid of kind of showing these almost embarrassing moments with the characters. Like having her eat a bunch of cookies and then at some point she burps and everybody just kind of goes silent. And it's just so super cute. It's interactions that are so natural and so believable. That pure and discoverable nature is what makes these characters stand out as living, breathing characters. And my gosh, later on, there was like, I think there's like 5 points in the show that I just cried. Like, they just had such great emotional, impactful moments. And it's not like just characters die or something like that and character cries. No, these are just moments where you see the character has achieved something. Like specifically having this moment where she calls her old teacher, who used to teach her in this classroom with only her. And she always wanted this girl to have friends. And she finally has them. She's finally achieved the thing that she's always dreamed about. And she couldn't help but get all teary-eyed. It was so good. It was such a beautiful series. The animation was phenomenal. Cloverworks did an amazing job on it. I cannot express enough. Akabe Sailor Uniform is just a treasure. Moving on to my number 3. As everybody was giving this Anime of the Year of 2021, I was waiting. I was waiting for this to fully air, and now I can finally praise it from the rooftops. Yes, Ranking of Kings is an absolutely amazing, near perfect show. The style, the visuals, the characters, the animation by which studio, everything was phenomenal. Early on, the series sells you on Boji. Boji is a prince of this kingdom that's looked down upon because he is deaf. And everybody mocks him, and yet he keeps charging forward. He keeps this positive outward appearance, always marching forward. But then he finally meets a friend who's technically a thief. And so he starts giving everything to this thief. But eventually what you get is that thief sees Boji at his weakest, crying by himself because, yes, every time people make fun of him, he senses it. He knows people are laughing at him. And this quickly shifts as you start to get a broader sense of this world itself, or at least this kingdom, and the kingdoms around it. This Ranking of Kings system, which is this big ranking system to choose which king of which nation is the best. But then you also have the aspect, there's a conflict within the kingdom itself where they want to put somebody else in the seat of the throne. And so Boji has to be gotten rid of. And as the story goes along, you start meeting a whole bunch of different characters, different kingdoms, and how everything else is run. And the thing that sold me so much on the series is that every single character, every villain, everybody was not the sum of their first appearance. This writer knows how to write characters. Healing is a prime example. The queen of this kingdom. She seems like a nasty person when you first meet her. She's looking down upon Boji. But then over time you realize, oh dang, this lady has more about her. She's more than just a nasty stepmother. And this goes into every single character. Bebin, Domas, Daida, Bose, Miranjo. Every single one of these characters has so much going for them. They're all living, breathing creatures that think, change their minds, change their perspectives on a regular basis. They're the epitome of dynamic characters. And seeing their take on each situation that the entire kingdom goes through on a regular basis was pure writing gold. Adding that, like I said before, yes, Wit Studio doing an absolutely phenomenal job animating this series. It visually looked fantastic, and it has its own unique art style to it as well. Which at first when I seen it, I was like, man, this looks like a kiddie show. it wasn't. It's almost like it's a children's book almost brought to life. And it's incredibly done. I cannot express. If you missed Ranking of Kings, please go watch it. Which, yes, might make some people question, what's Andrew's number 2? What could be above Ranking of Kings? And yes, honestly, the top 3 are like all beautiful in their own right. It was an absolute struggle deciding which would go in which place. They're each individually perfect shows, so it's like difficult to really decide which one goes above which. So they're interchangeable, basically. But no, my number 2 is Licorice Recoil. My gosh, this series was, oh gosh, every single week this show aired, I was clamoring for the next episode. I loved this series so much. And yes, chop it up mostly as Chisato is absolutely an amazing character. And not only that, but yes, Takina is an absolutely amazing character. This show is characters done perfect. It kind of opens up this idea of, yes, these trained children to be basically assassins. If any crime is going to happen, they essentially stop it before it happens. And you have this big organization that essentially covers up whatever they do. Because Japan in this world essentially is trying to give this facade that they have zero crime. Because again, everything is taken out by these licorice, and then they cover it up. And over time, the main story beat is people wanting to shake that up. But at its core, like I said before, is these licorice, namely Chisato and Takina. Chisato is a part of this cafe, pretty much rejects from the entire DA system, which runs the licorice. And at some point, the DA ends up having to kick out Takina, who pretty much didn't obey our orders and shot a bunch of bad guys. And Takina gets kind of transferred to this cafe and now under the tutelage of Chisato, who is this very famous licorice. And like I said earlier, the thing that really sells this show is the character moments. Because you essentially have Takina wants to prove herself so she can get back into the DA. Because yes, as you would guess, these children are all orphans, and essentially the DA is their family. That's what they grew up in, that's all they had. And so Takina wants to go back there. She basically got kicked out of her house. But Chisato is kind of showing Takina that there's more to the world itself. There's more things to enjoy in the world, and yes, there's also this aspect that Chisato likes non-lethal. She doesn't like taking lives, whereas Takina is perfectly fine with it. We have the license to, why not just take everybody out? So there's a little bit of conflict in how they see the world. But again, over time, you're seeing Chisato slowly pull Takina out of that shell, out of her perspective. And every single character moment where that you see that progress was so beautifully done. Takina is not a light switch. Over time, it has to slowly crack away at her shell. The character moments between these two were so pure. It's kind of like the whole situation with Akiba Sailor Uniform. They nailed these moments between the characters. They felt natural. They felt like real people. I always point out the fountain scene, which is in the DA. Chisato and Takina are there, and you see Takina looking at all the dorms ahead of her, the place that she got to, like again, her home. And you have this moment where Chisato says, give the cafe a shot. Meet people. See if it'll change your perspective. And if it doesn't, we'll see about getting you back here. Again, Chisato's not saying you're wrong for wanting to be here, but she's saying here's an option. And the way that it portrayed that scene was so freaking beautiful. I love these characters. I love all their goofy shenanigans. And yeah, that's not to even get into the fact that A1 Pictures did an absolutely incredible job with this series. Because all the combat sequences, at least most of them, I know they kind of drop off later on, most of the action sequences have creativity behind them. So instead of having just these shootouts where people are shooting from behind cover, you have like steps to the combat sequence. One character goes to flank, this other character's hiding behind this briefcase, shooting around the corners. It's just really clever. I love this show. I love the character designs. I love the characters. I love the animation. I love everything about it. And I wish that there was more. And finally, yes, the #1 anime of the year 2022 goes to, yes, Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, Eris the Goblin Slayer. No, I'm just joking. I did really, really love that. But it's just one episode, so I didn't want to kick anything else off for it. No, my #1, for anybody that doesn't know me, Ascendance of a Bookworm Season 3. I cannot get enough of Ascendance of a Bookworm. I cannot get enough of mine. I cannot get enough of this world. I cannot get enough of this writing. I cannot get enough about any of it. This series is absolutely phenomenal. And it was enough that when I finished this season, I went out and bought all of the light novels that were currently available. That's how much I love this world. I love these characters. At its core, what makes Ascendance of Bookworm so fantastic, it continues to be fantastic, is Mine. Mine, the main character, is a phenomenal character. Outwardly, she's selfish, she's driven, but at the same time, she's also nurturing and selfless. She cries about what she wants, but at the same time, she still does not overlook people's problems. She still goes out of her way to help other people. And it's essentially a story about somebody being ripped from their family over and over again. For those that don't know, it's essentially this girl that was a bookworm in our modern times Japan. She gets transported to this other world into the body of a girl named Mine. So you essentially have this girl that's transported to another world, but not into a world where she's going to be some OP main character with a gigantic harem. No, she's in the body of this very sickly girl who's always on the verge of death. And so she has to rely on other people constantly. And yes, the big joke that starts off with is that she just wants books, but she's a part of a commoner's family. So she doesn't have money. And yes, technically all the books are for nobles. So yes, she's trying to technically bring in technology from our modern times to produce her own books. But at the same time, she's going to catch the attention of the guilds and the nobles themselves and get kind of thrown into this big fiasco. And yes, a lot of that has to do with why she's so ill. This kind of thing that she's inflicted with, which yes, does catch the attention of the nobles. I kind of put it in perspective in the idea that it almost feels like this is a story about somebody that's constantly isekai'd away from family, constantly pulled from family. Yes, she technically didn't want to have anything to do with her mother. She just wanted to read her books in her previous life, but she was transported and then she realized that was a problem. But then she gets a new family, a very nurturing family, and then she's pulled from that as well. Like, it seems like she just cannot be happy. She's like a girl of multiple tragedies, and my heart breaks every time it feels like she's been pulled away from something that she establishes. Mine is such a beautiful character and such a intriguingly dynamic character that I cannot express how much I love seeing her journey. This is truly one of those one in a million isekais, one of those ones that stands out from the crowd of not just relying on the typical tropes. I just can't get enough of it, and I want so much more of it. I absolutely love all these characters, and I love the world and what it's putting together. I highly suggest, if you have not watched it yet, check out Ascendance of Bookworm. It's like one of those series that when I suggest it, I get nothing but positive feedback from people. Thanks for suggesting this show. Thanks for suggesting this show. Everybody seems to love it, and it warms my heart. And that's it. That is my top 10 anime of the year 2022. And like I said before, my honorable mention list is humongous. So let's go through them really quickly. Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic was definitely a hard one not to put in my list. But it's kind of one of those series where I've given it enough credits. I've put it in like literally every year it's in. But at the same time, I also want to admit that yes, this particular series or this particular season had some down points. It wasn't 100% perfection, but gosh dang it, when it hits, it's like a 20 out of 10. This show is amazing. I highly suggest it. It doesn't need suggesting. People know about it already. Cyberpunk Edge Runners, yes, I was very tempted to put it in my list. It's one of those shows where I think it's perfect. Like, it's got perfect characters, it's got perfect animation, perfect, you know, the theme, the setting, everything nailed it. They pulled off Cyberpunk so well with the series. Same time, it's like one of those series that I think is perfect, but it's not like a favorite, I guess is the best way to put it. It's kind of like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's perfect. I feel it's perfect, but it's not a favorite. Uncle from Another World, gosh dang it, it's one of my favorite comedies of all time now. The show is so stupid, it's so funny. I love Elf, everything about that series, Sega references, isekai jokes. It just nails the comedy. It's gut laughs through and through. Bocchi the Rock was absolute artistic and portrayal beauty. Characters done perfect. It's such a great show. Another one that's just breaks my heart not having it in my list. I absolutely love that series. Awashi, one of my very few cases where it's a sports show that I just absolutely love. I want more so badly. I want more. It did have a lulling point in the third quarter, but other than that, it was just a really fantastic sports show and just had great characters. Yes, My Dress Up Darling, I know, I already hear people yelling that it wasn't in my top 10. I love My Dress Up Darling. You could chop it up as maybe the fact that it was so early in the year, but I have tons of early year stuff in my list already, but I love it. I still can't wait for more of it. I think Marin is beautiful. I think Gojo is a fantastic male character, which is very rare in these types of shows. The writing's great. The character moments, there's so many goofy and really hilarious moments. It should have been in my top 10. Just, I have to stop. I have to, it's done. Moving on. Arknights, great. Love it. Fantastic. Was looking forward to every single week. It's hard for me to put it in the list of 10 because it was only 8 episodes and there was some lulling points in there. But overall, I was super pleasantly surprised by the series. I absolutely love it. And I cannot wait for more. Immoral Guild. Yes, I love this show. It's a great, fantastic show. If you like interspecies reviewers, please go watch this show. It's the same kind of thing where it's ecchi, borderline H. It's fantastic, and it was hilarious at the same time. I love the comedy in it. Chainsaw Man, it was great, but it's kind of one of those ones that the further away you get from it airing, you kind of realize you know, there was only these key parts that were super massive hype, but it's still fantastic. I was very, very surprised how much I enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be overhyped, but I still ended up enjoying it a lot. Executioner Way of Life, a really fantastic different take on isekais, where it's essentially the isekais come to the world and your perspective is from people of the world that don't want them to be there because they're coming over and destroying it. So it was really cool. I loved it. I love the characters, Minnow, Momo. They were phenomenal. The art style was great. It needs more. Like, I need a second season so bad. Slow Loop, fantastic slice of life with the concept of loss, and I think it nailed it. The characters were great. I want more of it so badly. And yes, it has a Bocchi the Rock reference in there, so go watch it because of that. Like I mentioned earlier, Eris the Goblin Slayer. Now that I've read the light novel, I'm becoming like that person that read the source material and said, yeah, actually, it wasn't supposed to be like that. It was still great. Seeing Eris in action was just phenomenal. And yes, finally, Teasing Master Takagi-san was great as well. It really does feel like we kind of got a payoff at the end, finally. But overall, the season was kind of overplaying the joke at this point, so it was a little bit of a downer for me. Spy X Family, Romantic Killer, Mob Psycho, Raven in the Inner Palace, Bibliophile Princess, Bleach, like I said, it couldn't be in the list because it's too many episodes. Muv-Luv Alternative Part 2. Reincarnated as a Sword, Gundam, Witch from Mercury. Princess Connect Redive 2. I'm quitting heroing. It just, the list keeps going. Oh. Anyhow, that's my top anime of the year 2022. I hope you guys enjoy this video as always. Hopefully you found some cool anime in here in order to check out. Again, it's not me saying my anime is better than yours. It's not me saying because I didn't choose yours, you're a terrible person. It's just saying these are what I really enjoyed. Check them out if you have time. Again, like I said before, please go down in the comments down below. Let me know what your favorite anime are of the year. I love hearing from you guys. I love the feedback. I love the constructive feedback usually I get from these top lists. So as per usual, I thank you guys for checking out this video. And if you like this video, make sure that like button down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more and you like what you see here, go down below in the description. There's a link to our Patreon, our tips link. We also have a membership button down there where you can join the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed, and here is to 2023.